right, this is Crystal Curry. Thank you for joining Curry Girl Tech Talk. Today is the second part of Elevate Leadership 2025 series where we're talking about conflict management. And I am super excited. I have two wonderful ladies here with me. We have Vanessa Bryant. Vanessa has her own practice, Soaring Wings. Here, say that again.
Soaring Wings Counseling Services.
I am super excited to have her. And we have Deja Hardiman here. And Deja is a certified conflict management professional. And I am super excited to have her. And thank you for joining. We have a wonderful show planned for you all. I believe that we can all use a refresher when it comes to conflict management and conflict resolution. And I believe that a lot of people can use it not only in their professional careers, because inevitably we face some sort of challenge in our work environments, but also in our personal lives with our relationships and how to resolve conflicts and make our relationships better and get to those resolutions quicker. So I'm excited about the tips and techniques that you girls will give us today. So without further ado, we'll get right into it. All right. So the first question and where we should start out is just level setting with what exactly is conflict management and what is the conflict management process entail?
I can start off. It's a lot that goes into it. With mediation, which is what I'm certified in, that's just a part of what we call a slippery slope, or it's a slope that goes down. So you have a choice of negotiation where you get to facilitate the conflict and you get to choose where to go with the conflict yourself. Then you have mediation where you are a facilitated mediator who helps them have the conversation, which is needed sometimes. People don't know how to have those conversations.
That's true.
And then we have where they start to lose that leeway where they're not able to make their own choices and you get to arbitration. Or people are making choices for you. Someone else is being basically the God in the situation instead of yourself. So yeah, conflict, mediation and management. It's like on that slippery slope, you have a lot of choices of where you can go.
Absolutely. And it's like the techniques that go into the conflict management and also leads into conflict resolution. Part of that looks like the open-mindedness that is needed in order for people to come together and be able to respect each other's opinion. That's a huge thing I feel like that we've lost over the last few years.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that because it seems like at first we have this sort of respectful culture where we're trying to be more inclusive, but then it does feel like it's eroded. The climate over the past couple of years, I agree with Vanessa in that it seems that there's a tension surrounding the political environment. And I think we all are just a little weary after the pandemic. We're back in the office and, now learning how to re-navigate that again.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
It's been a challenge, especially with these 5 years since the pandemic started. But I think we're reaching a point, at least in some of our lives. I don't know if everyone has been able to tell that we're introspecting a little bit more and reflecting. Some of us are. And then we have some people who are not doing that work where they are not wanting to look at themselves. So we have this kind of polarization where we have people who are willing to work on themselves and willing to fight for a repair and relationship. And then we have the other side where people are like, no, my way or the highway. I need I need you to be sued. I need this to go down. I need to get my win. That's what they want. They want my win.
And that brings up a good point, Deja. I know there's several steps, and Vanessa, you can help me with this too. I know there's several steps with the conflict management process. And one is identifying that there is an issue. So that's one of the first things. And sometimes in work environments, we can pass it off and, it's just a personality conflict thing. It'll resolve itself. Don't worry about it. And then sometimes we let it fester, and then prolonging it sometimes seems to exacerbate the situation without a solution.
Yes.
And then now, once you mentioned, we recognize those polarizing opinions, and it just doesn't seem like we can come to an agreement. What's next? What do we do next? Because everybody needs some help sometimes with figuring out, all right, now I know there's a problem. What is our next step after we've identified the problem? What do we do to start to resolve it? Or what is our next step?
think one of the biggest things is finding a common goal so that we all feel like we're working as a team together.
Yes.
And also incorporating active listening skills. So it's not only just like listening to what you're saying, but summarizing what the person said to make sure that I got what you said and not moving on to the next, topic until I completely understood what you said.
Exactly.
Yes. Oh my goodness. That is key. And I believe that's a key point because one of the things that breaks down sometimes in conflict resolution is the communication. The communication is such a huge component of resolving conflict and through that conflict management process. And one of the techniques is the LEAPS concept with communication. LEAPS is the communication technique that before you leap in to the conflict management process, you have to first listen and then practice empathy, listening, empathy, and then ask. And then, like you mentioned, paraphrasing what they said and then summarizing what they said. That way they know that you captured exactly what they were trying to communicate to you. They when you summarize it back, that gives them an opportunity as well to correct if we misunderstood, which,
Which we do.
Yes.
Yes, we definitely misunderstand, and that's what started the conflict a lot of times. And first, we misread what someone was trying to say to us or the way that someone made us feel in a certain moment. Yes, their tone, how they did something, like their body language, but you just really never know what someone's going through in their own life.
Right.
You have about 48 hours to let something bother you before it becomes a true conflict. So if you let something fester over 2 days, you've now let this become a cancer for you. You let this become a boiling, like you now hate this person because you let it go over that 24 hour or the 48 hours where you have to fix and forgive yourself and then forgive the next person for what happened, or else you're going to now have a 3-month, 5-year beef with someone for this one issue, and it's huge.
And just taking that step, identifying that you had a conflict and then talking about it within that window. That way it doesn't fester and become something bigger.
More easier in the work environment, but when you go out to your personal, and both individuals just have to be open-minded and ready for it. One of the things that I work with a lot of my clients on is when you're confronting somebody, instead of why did you do this, or the pointing the fingers, it's asking the how or the what questions. What was it that made you come off this way? Or what was it that, I did that made you assume or perceived that I wasn't wanting to hear what you were saying? And that way they're open-minded or open-ended questions, but then they also take away that why, because why makes you feel defensive.
Exactly. Yeah. I'll second that. You don't ask why in mediation, because that opens the door for a floodgate of all the problems why they hate this person. And as a mediator, you're not there to build a case against anyone. You're there to help them move forward and take the next step together, not circle back as to the whys. You're starting to ask more questions, get the what, the how, and then figure out, how do you want this to move forward? What would you like to see your relationship next? Yeah, the common goal. Exactly.
We talked about identifying the problem, and then we talked about, once we've identified it, communicating to make sure that we understand and listening to what they have to say and asking open-ended questions, open-ended questions, and making sure that we paraphrase and not ask why, but ask what or how.
How could I have done that better?
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. All right. And then now that we're in the resolution phase of it, how do we get to that common goal?
Whenever we aren't choosing to compromise, because that just means you get your deal, you get your deal. It's where what you want is for them to be able to move forward and create if they want a lasting relationship, you want them to be able to have a repaired relationship, not just I got my side of the bargain, you got your side of the bargain, but there was no work that was actually done for the relationship. Yes, you both got something out of the deal, but the goal of mediation is more are you going to be okay to see this person tomorrow and, be able to start maybe a new relationship, possibly. That's what the real goal. Because compromise is you get this and you get this, but are you truly happy? with your, with the relationship, with what you get out of it? Are you leaving better? That's the thing. Are you leaving in the situation better than how you came?
Are we leaving the situation better than how we came? Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Are we leaving better than we came? Because it's not about
who wins,
or who wins.
Win in this specific, situation versus, again, that coming with that mentality of like, I need to win automatically like throws you out of that active listening, being open-minded, because no matter what, you're there to get your point across and to want to ultimately just get the outcome that you desire without taking the other person's thoughts and feelings and everything into consideration.
I came from a technology background, and it's a we gotta win at all costs kind of attitude sometimes. And it puts you in this competitive mode. But when you're shifting to a conflict management process or a conflict resolution type of mindset, those two are conflicting things, because especially in business, we got to win at all costs. You have a department that you're sending some process to their department and you feel like they're doing their process wrong, or it's impeding some progress of your own that you need to work out. And it's like you mentioned, sometimes it's my way or the highway, and having that I want to win versus
outcome that everybody feels heard, everybody feels like their ideas have been valued, and then we're trying to come up with an outcome that we all can agree on.
I think they realize that that's the way to really win, is when everybody wins. But it's a virus of America, I think, honestly, for us to just say win, win, win. We have to win the trophy. And then you go home and like you feel nothing. Like no one is really that happy with that. It's like they're just trying to, I guess, fulfill something or get their yes.
That's one of the things I would say. Sure, you won the argument, but what did you win? What did you get out of it? How do we go forward from here? When you're in relation, you want to be in a good rapport with each other. We're in this together type of thing.
And I think that when they go in trying to win their point across and try to get the person to a lot of times manipulate the other person's mindset as well. And at the end, they're thinking, oh, I won. But in actuality, it's like it was a loss.
That's right.
Yes.
Right. No one really wins when you have that mentality. Like you really don't win. No one wins.
Right.
It's like
if the other person doesn't feel heard, it's like you lost that opportunity to have an effective communication style.
Yes. That's right.
Huge in relationships. It's the only way to make it work.
Right. That's right. For people in the relationship or in the business to feel as though we're all winners. They didn't lose something. It implies that if you won, that they lost. And nobody wants to feel like a loser. Everybody wants to feel like they gained something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's so much more rewarding when both parties get to win. Like if they both get to walk out happier, that means like we did a great job, and that's what we want. That's what we want for everyone. Like conflict doesn't have to be what it is right now. It really could be talked through. Just people just need to know how to talk to each other, and it really is even just like the tone of your voice. It's the cadence. It's like how you're saying everything. It's you're working with two parties. It's not giving more energy to one or being more respectful to one, because that can come off as you moving to this party rather than actually like listening to this party. You have to be very equal. You have to put them on the same playing field. They start off at the same place in your mind, even if one is a pope and the other one is a priest of a small church. Like you're going to treat them as if they're the same on the same playing ground. It's huge.
I would say a lot of times with my clients, we start off with learning like boundaries and assertiveness. And it's so interesting how often you recognize that no matter the age of someone, it's like, oh, I never thought that I can implement boundaries. And they always felt bad implementing boundaries. But even in setting some boundaries and being assertive, there's a way to have that constructive conversation. And when you're approaching someone, like I have a client that I worked with on conflict in work. And it was, helping them approach the conversation with their coworker on what what is a commonality or common ground? Like, we're both trying to get everything started in the morning. How can we work together? Like, if we come out with a game plan, what would you like to include? And making sure that other person feels included in the game plan as well. So that way it's not just you coming with, this is what we're going to do. Blah, 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 blah. And then instead giving the other person an opportunity as well to provide their input. And so it seems, again, more like a teamwork environment versus a dictatorship.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. Absolutely. One of the things I picked up on that you said is establishing boundaries. And we hear that often. Can you give us a good way to set boundaries with people, especially in work environment? In order to have an effective leadership process is to be able to have open debates and just to make sure that they're done respectfully. That way, everyone leaves with something tangible and actionable, like the meeting was productive and that things are going to get accomplished when we leave because we're here for a purpose. Sometimes in work, we're afraid to speak up or we're not sure how to set those boundaries to make sure that we're able to have effective communication. Can you give us some tips for how we establish boundaries?
One of the things I like to teach some of my clients is identifying what type of boundary that they felt was violated between like a time boundary, like was someone not on time and they or took advantage of your time, personal space, physical touch, materials, or even intellectual boundaries when someone is not taking your thoughts into consideration. And so when it comes to conflict, and let's say, for example, having a conversation with a coworker and they just catch an attitude with you and was really rude and you can tell that their voice is getting very abrasive. And it's in that moment just saying, okay, I can see that you're getting upset right now. How about like I give you 5 minutes to calm down because, I feel like, and you insert the emotion, like I feel disrespected when you speak to me like that. So I want to give you time so that way we can communicate. We can, have this conversation a little later once you're able to just calm down a bit. And so a lot of it is doing those I statements where it's like, I feel blank and you insert the emotion and then you say what the person did instead of that pointing the fingers like, you don't talk to me like that, you don't disrespect me like that. It's more like I felt disrespected when you spoke to me like that.
Because there's no debate on that. You can't debate the way that a person felt in that moment. It's just it's a statement and that establishes a boundary. It's not only does it communicate, my feeling about the way that a person communicated, but it also establishes I don't want to be communicated with that way.
Right.
I want to be respected and communicated with in a respectful manner. And that did both. That establishes the boundary and it established how a person made you feel when they violate that boundary.
Absolutely.
So with the setting the boundary and the way you said it was like just absolutely perfect because once you do that, now you don't have to worry about that 48 hours where you had to make sure you didn't let that fester. You took care of that business. Now it's off your back. It's like it rolls off your back. You said what you need to say. So now you can go about your day and you said your piece, Now they know how you made them feel so they will not do it again. Or if they do, you said it before,
In the work environment, because a lot of times you're caught off guard and you just sit back and you're like, did that just happen? And it takes you a while to reflect. And you're like, dang, I wish I would have said this or would have said that.
Next time you're in the shower and you're like, oh, I should have said this. I should have said, and you're like, no.
But going the next day and just knocking on that office door or something and being like, hey, can I speak to you about our conversation yesterday? And then that's where the I feel statement can come into place. And then, saying next time that happens, perhaps like if I notice it, like I'll give you some time and then we can reconvene later on. So it's within that 48-hour time frame and it gives them an opportunity to say, yes, just because you didn't know how to set that boundary in that moment, you still have time to go back and set that.
That's awesome. One thing I do want to bring up is people may not feel comfortable doing that if it's a superior, right? Because with the power dynamics of being the boss, being in control, or they have a crummy boss that goes around saying whatever he wants to say or doing it however he wants to do it. It's still important to take that step and establish that boundary because no matter what the situation is in terms of a reporting structure, it's still important key to having a respectful workplace and it not being a hostile environment or toxic for you. Even human resources will get involved if it's creating a toxic environment for people to speak up.
And also, when it comes to setting that boundary or not even knowing how to approach that individual, a lot of times I work with my clients on just asking them, like, next time we have this disagreement or you respond that way, how would you like for me to bring that to your attention? And that way, once they tell you, it's like, okay, I'm going to do that. Because I asked you, how would you like for me to bring that to your attention when I feel disrespected?
Awesome.
It depends on what it is, what the situation was. I will never forget. I was like 19, 20 at the time, and I was working at a jewelry store. And the situation, just to paint the picture, I was having a great time there. And then all of a sudden, I have this one instance where a person comes in and they are basically racially profiled by my main store manager. And so he basically pushes the button and the alarm goes off. And I'm like, what is going on? Because the gentleman was working with me. So I saw he was not a threat at all. I didn't see any issue with him. And he was a truck driver. He had his little thing on. So he just was stopping in just to get something for his wife. And then, so the guy ends up leaving and everything. And then the store manager's like, well, that could have been a real threat. It was a person of color who he was talking about. And I said, I will not work in this type of environment. So that day, I don't know where I got this like spunk from. I said, can I talk to you in your office really quick? And so I talked to him in his office and I said, I will not be able to work here with you doing things like that. I put in my 2-week notice. And the funny thing is, the miracle that happened was he got fired because of the situation. The assistant store manager, which was a woman, ended up taking his place, and the place was wonderful. So I'm just saying, like, even if it is a higher up, you still have to set those boundaries. Like, this is your livelihood. You can't go to work and feel like you're in a toxic environment because then you're going to hate going to work. And no one deserves to feel that way.
That's right.
You have to choose yourself because they deserve to have your best you and you deserve to have the best experience at work. Like, it's the basic need.
Yes, and I commend you for that.
And I was like, that's a perfect example of like those boundaries. Those boundaries.
Yeah. All right. We've gone through how to identify a conflict that might be brewing. We've talked about how to communicate. We've gave some tips on the best ways to communicate and set those boundaries. And then now I want to give the audience little quick things that they can do when they're in the midst of resolving a conflict.
I would say when it comes to first being able to identify the emotion that you're feeling, I give all my clients in our first session get what's called a feelings wheel. And so it's this wheel which starts with just 6 basic like feelings like happy, sad, angry, mad, and then it just branches off into like a plethora of other emotions like anger, just branches off to frustrated, furiated, critical, disappointed. And so I think using some tools and taking a step back so you can identify what you are feeling and identify that emotion and where that emotion is coming from. And it goes back to that I statement. I felt blank, when you blank. I would also say like being mindful of the type of cognitive distortion that you might be having. And so that may look like jumping to conclusions. Like are there certain facts that you're not taking into consideration when jumping to the assumption of what that person is thinking, which is called mind reading? Are you mind reading? Or is it also that fortune telling where you're predicting what the future looks like without the evidence and without even asking that person the questions to help put those puzzle pieces together?
Because doesn't that make us feel more anxious when we're making up something in the future that hasn't even happened yet?
Right. That's the point. It's like, and so the best way to understand what the person is thinking is to ask them.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That is awesome. Thank you for that.
I would just say we all have different personality types. We all have different ways of dealing with conflict. We all have different ways of dealing with an issue. Some of us just are more head forward on it. Some of us are more perfectionists, like we come back and we fix all the loose ends. sometimes people just do not mix, and that's okay. And sometimes you have to talk to certain type of personality types in certain type of ways, because one, they grew up a certain way. The way we communicate has a lot to do with our parents. Some people have not worked through the emotional maturity that you need to be able to make these points and like be able to have forgiveness. Some people don't know what forgiveness is, and that's a huge part of conflict solution. Is forgiveness. The thing about forgiveness is that you do have to forgive yourself first. And that looks like I forgive myself for letting them make me feel that way. And then that's whenever you can actually forgive them and actually make that like step towards forgetting about it or moving past it and becoming better after with this new understanding of like the situation from a new lens.
A lot of times we hear about forgiveness and we think about it in terms of our personal relationships, which I hope this episode is able to help people relationally as well as professionally. But when we think about it, we can also be forgiving in a professional environment. I noticed that if we allow conflict to continue in a workplace, then it impedes progress. We can't get things done. Team synergy is not up to par. The work is stalled or neglected. Things don't go as smoothly as they could because we've got these internal conflicts going on that nobody's addressing. Forgiving, it's going to help to work through conflict and to navigate the conflict management process as leaders. All right, I think this was good. I think this was really, really good. It's going to help us have better cordial debates with people.
Yes. And it's not even like once you actually show that person who is showing that like tension that you're not anything to worry about. It also alleviates that tension because if you choose to be positive, even though you know someone's coming at you with some type of prejudice, say for instance, and you still meet them where you are, where you're solid in yourself, and that they go away not being as prejudiced anymore because you didn't actually fulfill their prophecy that they tried to project onto you.
Right.
And there was one other thing I wanted to add about conflict mediation management. There's this exercise where it's like the 3-chair exercise where 2 people are sitting in a chair, each one, and then we have a third one that is empty. So the 2 people, you have one person who's called the recorder. They're writing down everything that the first person in the first chair is saying. So they're writing down everything, blah, 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 blah. Then the person moves into the second chair. So in this project, like the recorder is writing down a conflict that the first person is having. Whenever the person who was in the first chair, they have to eventually move to the second chair where they have to act like they are the person who they're in conflict with. They have to put themselves in that person's shoes.
Oh, goodness.
And people find it so, I was the only person who actually was able to be okay with putting myself in another person's shoes. And that let me know, like, not many people can do that or want to do that.
Goodness, that is such a key component of resolving a conflict because if you can put yourself in another person's shoes or see it from their perspective or their viewpoint, it can give you so much more clarity and understanding about the situation, and you can approach it from a much better way to resolve it. Yeah, that's awesome.
And I want to add to that, when you're trying to understand the other person's perspective, one thing that with clients, don't say, I understand where you're coming from, because the truth is, no matter how much you want to put yourself in their shoes, you don't fully get the full picture. So it's more of like, I get where you're coming from, or I can see how that would hurt you, versus saying, I understand, because a lot of people take offense to that. They're like, no, you don't. You're not an African-American male who was, like, you don't know the deeperness behind it. But to want to see the other person's perspective and just saying, I can see how that would affect you this way, and thanking them for sharing that perspective too.
Yes. Thank you, Vanessa, for that too.
Sympathetic, like having more of that empathy behind it, that emotion that comes from the loss. The body's dynamic is completely different.
That's right. Thank you for that, because thank you for putting those words together. Passion, empathy, respect. All those words. Thank you, girls, for joining today. I'm very appreciative for having you here, and I know that this is going to help a lot of people. I'm really grateful for that. I'm going to put the information for how to connect with Vanessa Bryant and also Deja Hardiman. I'm going to put their information on my website, and it'll also be in the episode notes if you want to talk with them further about conflict resolution. Thank you for joining the episode today. I'm Crystal Curry. Take care.